Well, Tim, here we are in Sulphur, Oklahoma, and we're visiting Cal Johnson, one of the Wolfhounds that served in the 2nd Platoon during 1968 and part of 69. And so the reason we're here is because we're doing unit histories. We want to make sure that every man that served in that unit has an opportunity to at least share some of his thoughts about his service and his time in Vietnam, so that we can assure him and everybody in the platoon that this will be a history that'll be kept forever. In other words, when we're gone, our kids, our grandkids, 100 years from now, we have a perpetual fund that will keep that website up for 100 years. So this will be, and it's a history of us, of what we did. So having said that, I'll start out just by asking you, what was your date of birth?
9/25/47.
Okay, and what town were you born in?
I was born in Oxnard, California.
Mm-hmm. Not very. I was from San Diego. You knew that?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah,
know that.
so I was
really?
I was a San Diego boy.
Wow.
19 years, and then I was Uncle Sam's boy.
Few miles from us then.
Yeah, we were close enough that when I was in high school, we used to go down to Tijuana every weekend.
Oh no, never had a desire to go down there.
And where were you raised?
I was raised in California.
Okay, in that area where you were born. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your folks, your mom and dad.
My mom and dad both moved to California during the migration, I guess you'd call it, after the Dust Bowl, and Dad went to work out there, and of course they were married when they went to California, and they stayed there until I was out of the Army, I guess.
How many kids did they have?
They had just 2 of us.
Okay.
My brother and I.
And your brother is?
My brother is Bob Johnson, and he was 13 years older than I am.
Oh.
Sadly, he passed away a few years ago.
Okay, okay. And was he out in California?
Yeah.
So he stayed out there?
Yeah, he stayed out there, but he eventually moved back here before we did.
So did you, were you drafted into the Army, or did you join?
No, I was drafted.
And you were in California at the time?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got that. And do you remember the date that you went into basic training?
August the 1st, 1967.
Okay, and where did you go?
I went to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Okay, and how about AIT?
AIT, I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
And were you married at that time?
I was. I'd been married a month and a half when I got drafted.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so you went to Vietnam, a married man, but no kids.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so a lot of guys that fell into that category. Yeah. And do you remember the date that you got into Vietnam?
January the 28th, I believe, 1968.
Okay. Give me some kind of what was your impression when you walked into the platoon for the first time?
I thought, what in the world am I doing here? It was scary because I got there 2 days before the Tet Offensive broke out. I was in Long Binh Replacement Center when they hit Saigon.
And you knew something bad was coming up. Yeah.
Exactly. And they had already changed my MOS when I got over there. I had gone to 2 weeks of Fort Knox to learn to drive an APC carrier.
Oh yeah.
And so when I went over, that was supposed to be my job. But when I got there, the Wolfhounds had lost so many people.
Yeah.
That's where they sent me. So.
And you never did see the cockpit of an APC?
Well, actually, I did one time. Right before I came home, I was on post, and I got to drive a Bigg APC, the the communications.
Oh yes, yeah.
I drove it from the motor pool up to headquarters.
All right. So at least you got some.
I got to drive it.
You got some trigger time.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, you didn't waste all your training.
No.
Who do you remember of the guys when you came into the platoon? Who do you remember the most?
Willie Williams.
Okay.
He got there a week before I did. So when my first day of going to orientation, he went out to the field. He had already finished his week of orientation
Okay.
and went out to the field. So about 3 days later, I came in from orientation, and Willie was laying on the bunk and had his foot all wrapped up in a bandage. And I thought, this guy's only been out in the field 3 days, and here he is already. And I should have known better, because when I asked him what happened, he said, well, I almost got my foot blew off. And I thought, good Lord. And come to find out what happened was they had called in artillery, and a chunk of wood hit him in the top of the foot. And it bruised his foot. But he wouldn't look at it because he thought it was gone. But
So did he wrap that?
no, he actually went to the infirmary.
Oh, okay.
He actually got a Purple Heart for
Okay,
it.
okay.
I was proud of him. But no, we went back out in the field together, and Willie and I were just stuck together from then on.
Yep. And who else do you remember?
I remember Dale Cutler. Dale was our squad leader when we went out in the field.
And you guys called him Bruiser.
Bruiser.
Why did he have that nickname?
I have no idea, but that's what everybody called him. He was he looked like a football player.
Okay.
And he kind of adopted Willie and I when we went out there.
You know, I've heard from guys that served with Bruiser that his main focus was safety of the men.
It exactly
In
was.
any situation, it didn't matter.
You're right.
You know, it didn't matter the orders that he was given.
That's
If
right.
if it meant
Right.
his guys were going to be in trouble,
Yeah.
he just didn't do it.
He was serious about it.
Yep.
He really
Was he an E6?
He was an E5.
Okay. Did he ever go more than that?
Not that I know. of.
Okay. And so Dale, you remember him, and he kind of took you guys under his wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember what job he told you were going to do when you first got there?
Yeah. Told me I was going to be an assistant gunner, or not assistant gunner, but an ammo bearer.
Okay.
For the M60 machine gun. Willie was going to be the assistant gunner.
Okay.
So we made up the team, Alan Kahn,
Oh, yes.
Willie,
Yep.
and myself.
And how many guys were in the platoon at that time?
At the time I got there was probably about 10, 12.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've told you this. When I walked into the platoon, there was 8.
Yeah.
There was 8, and that was when you were getting out.
Yeah.
They said you old timers had enough after that.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean,
Yeah, I guess.
I think they just said that's enough is enough.
Yeah.
And of course, Khan, we know he got killed.
Right.
Was that your first experience with having somebody killed?
No.
What was your first experience?
My first experience, I think, was the 28th of February. Had gone out on a sweep, and we were coming up a canal on the left side of the rest of the company, and were ambushed. And there was a machine gunner that went out in the field the same day I did.
So this is a new kid.
Oh yeah, he was brand new. He had just transferred in from Germany because he wanted to be in Vietnam. His first firefight and my first firefight. And we lost him. We lost our lieutenant, his radio man,
Do you remember who the lieutenant was?
George Paranugent.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I don't remember the radio man, his name. I hadn't been there that long. And we had a guy that we called Chief. It was an Indian.
Grits.
Yeah.
His last name was Grits.
Grits. He got wounded pretty bad. But that was my first.
And didn't Grits die eventually from?
No.
Oh, this is this is another guy.
Yeah,
that,
I don't think his name was Grits.
no,
I'm not
Grits
sure.
came later. The
Okay.
story about him comes
Yeah.
later. And you said it was your fault?
No,
Oh, I thought you said, and it was my fault.
no. I just don't remember remember the radio man.
Yeah, oh, okay,
That's what-
okay. So here you are. You don't know your ass from a hole in the ground, really.
Exactly.
And now you're exposed to 3 of your guys dead. Did you? I mean, like most of the guys. I mean, you saw them.
Yeah.
You actually physically
Oh, yeah.
saw them. What were you feeling?
I couldn't believe it. It didn't look real to me. I mean, actually the first one they brought out was the machine gunner that went out in the field with me, and they'd have just dragging him by, and I was in shock.
Did it go beyond being scared?
Oh yeah,
Way beyond
way
that.
beyond being scared.
Yep,
It was I think it was a shock of reality is what it was.
yep. And Willie describes Nugent, him getting shot. Willie was pretty close, I guess,
Yeah.
to where he was at.
Yeah, he was.
And it was a guy in a hole that shot him, right? That shot him.
That I don't know.
Yeah, Willie, and then Willie told me that they told him to go in there and get the guy. And Willie was a new guy.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
And I think they shot in the hole.
Yeah.
I don't think Willie.
Yeah, probably not. Knowing Willie, he probably didn't go in the hole.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But they did get the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
they did kill the
Yeah.
guy that killed Nugent.
Yeah,
So,
I do remember something else about that day. When they finally pulled us back, they had found an ammo cache that we had already went past, and they found it behind us. And I remember a DI telling me in advanced AIT down in Fort Polk that we were going up against people with pitchforks and hoes and things like that.
Like the old VC.
Yeah. And when I went back and I saw that cache that they had found, first thing I saw was a 51 caliber anti-aircraft gun. I thought somebody's lied to me.
Not so much a pitchfork.
No.
So then Medevac came in, Chopper came in and picked those guys
Picked
up.
those guys up. Yeah.
And what did they do with the cache? Somebody come out and blow it up?
Yeah, they come out and whatever. I don't know what they did with it, but I don't know whether they just confiscated it or whether they blew it up or what. But
Yep. And in those days when you were there, there was a lot of guys that tried to snag it.
Oh yeah.
And take it back because it was the trading value
Yeah.
of an AK or something was really high.
Yeah.
Because those guys, pilots especially and
Yeah.
stuff that never got exposed to this stuff, they'd pay money
Yeah.
to get their hands on an AK. So
I'll have to tell you the story about Captain Blackwood and I, the first
Okay.
day that Captain Blackwood went out with us.
and how long was after this incident? Was he replacing Nugent? Or?
No, we went through Lieutenant Rogers,
Yep, I remember hearing that name.
and Lieutenant Rogers was a good lieutenant. Then we went through a second lieutenant that didn't last long at all. I mean, he wasn't killed, but we didn't want him in the field with us because of the way he was. So,
And that had something to do with Bruiser.
no,
Was that where the incident? I'm guessing now. Was that where three of our guys were up there and cut off, and Bruiser said we're going to go up and get him, and the lieutenant ordered him, no, we're not. We're
Well,
pulling back.
it might have been part of it.
That was that guy. It may be a different incident, but
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
they said he can't be here.
Yeah,
He
well,
can't stay.
and the reason they got my backing was because I was walking point to an ambush site one night, and we were walking along a canal, came to some rice paddies, and there was a tree complex, and I got about halfway to the tree complex, and I heard a big loud clank. So I dropped, and of course everybody else did too. And I was trying to get an eye on what was going on, and the lieutenant come crawling up to me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "There's somebody in that tree line."
A metallic clank.
Clank. Not a clink, but a clank.
Yep.
So I had an idea what it was.
Somebody putting a mortar in a place.
Exactly. And I told the lieutenant, I said, "We can't go up there." And he said, "Well, that's where we're supposed to set up our ambush site, so that's where we're going." I said, "Well, that site's already taken. You might want to go somewhere else." But this time, all the rest of them had already gone back to the last tree line. So he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "If you don't go in there, I'm going to court-martial you."
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Well, first thing in the morning, we'll go see the captain." So, and I left. I crawled back, and so he did finally.
Yeah, he didn't stay there and crawl into
Oh, I
that
know.
ambush
Luckily,
site.
we didn't get spotted.
Yep.
Because just 20 minutes later, they started taking rounds out of that tree line. You could go into the company area back
Yep.
there. So I told him, I said, "You better get on the horn and give them the coordinates, or they're going to lose a lot of people." So he did.
Did he know how to read a map?
Yes, he did. He got the artillery call
Okay.
right on him. But we got back to the company area that morning, and the captain was telling the lieutenant what a good job he did sighting that So we didn't get court-martialed over the deal anyway.
So the lieutenant was praising his
Oh, yeah.
leadership and
Oh, sure.
bravery
Yeah.
and
That's why he didn't last long.
Yep.
He was more concerned about himself than his men.
what do you remember the circumstances? Did he transfer out or
He disappeared.
okay?
I
Yep.
don't know where he went. They sent him out somewhere.
That happened.
Yeah.
You know, that happened on occasion. So now you're still a new guy.
Oh, yeah.
And now you've seen 3 dead guys of your own,
Yeah.
and you've crawled out in the middle of the night, and you know that you're approaching an ambush,
Yeah.
your ambush, and how were you handling this? I mean, how were you keeping your thoughts straight on what your next? You didn't have experience, so how were you relying? What were you relying on to try to just common sense?
Common sense.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's in there, you don't want to.
Oh yeah.
You
So
don't
when
want
you
to-
went back the next morning, did he haul you up before the captain?
He never said another word about it.
Yep.
Not another word.
Yep. Okay. What was the area of operation for the platoon at that time?
At that time, we worked anywhere from Saigon, north of the Black Virgin Mountains, and over to Cambodia.
And did you get into the rubber plantation?
A few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I recall, that Black Virgin Mountain was a very dangerous place.
It was ominous looking at it from the air. It really was.
You know, but I mean, I guess there was a lot of VC and NVA over there.
oh, yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
So, do you remember your first helicopter ride?
Not really. I do remember, training at Fort Polk. We went through training on loading up on a helicopter. And we had certain places that we needed to be in, a certain spot to get on. And so when my first Eagle flight came in, Lieutenant Paranugent was there. And I remember asking him, "Where do you want me?" He said, "On that helicopter." So I found out right then a lot of that training went out the window when you got there. So I just got on where I could, and it just so happened that it was right in front of the door gunner on the right-hand side of the chopper, and sitting on the door with my feet hanging out.
Yep.
That was my ride from then on.
Yeah, that was my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your thinking was, but my thinking always is if they shoot at us and we're going to get knocked down, I want to at least be able to jump out. I don't want to be trapped. I don't want to be
Right.
trapped in the web seats
Yeah.
and so forth.
Right.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that was your motivation, but
I don't remember what it was, but I don't know that's what I wrote.
I know one thing. We got a much sweeter ride than anybody else in that helicopter.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, the experience of being on that
Yeah.
strut, there's nothing like it.
Oh, no.
And
No, and the nice thing about it, too, was it was always nice to get up in the air a little bit where the air was cooler.
oh yeah, that's for a fact. So do you remember? So we're going to call that an Eagle flight, right? That they took you guys. Where did they take you out and dump you off someplace? And what was that day like?
It was kind of strange. It was all new to me. But I learned that if I watched the other guys and kind of followed what they were doing, the older ones
Yep.
that had been there a while, I was probably pretty safe.
Okay.
Or at least I had a
And
chance.
you were kind of following the machine gunner, right? Because you were
Right,
his
yeah.
ammo bearer.
Yeah, right.
So at least you knew where you were supposed to be.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Except one time. We come off a helicopter in a wet rats paddy, and the machine gunner come out. I came out behind him, and we started to a berm, and he disappeared. All you could see was the top of his helmet over the water. So we had to drag him out of there.
He was weighted down.
Yes, he was, with that machine gun and
Wow.
ammo. Yeah. And he was a tall boy.
Yep. So then you didn't know whether you were supposed to swim or tread water.
I didn't know.
I understand that you took a prisoner.
I did.
Tell us the story about how that came about.
Oh, we had been called in late that afternoon to a village. A company had already been in and made contact, and they were pretty much pinned down. So we were going to go in there and act as a blocking force on their flank. And by the time we got there, they had broke contact.
Hmm.
And apparently it was a pretty good group, a good sized group. But anyway, they broke contact, and that night we set up right on the edge of that village. The next morning we got up and we started moving out. We were going to sweep the village to the left side, and we started down. We came through the village, and we started out on the other side down a hedgerow. And Rabbi was walking point, and I was walking behind him, and he just walked on down that hedgerow, and I just happened to look in the hedgerow and noticed some movement, and looked in there and saw the guy that was in the hedgerow, and he was an NVA, and I just got the drop on him.
Did he have his AK and everything?
He had his AK and all of his.
Oh yeah. And so you got the drop on him.
Got the drop on him. And I was scared to death. I told him to come out, and I told him to put his hands up first. And I told him to come out, and he put his hands down to crawl. I said, no, get your hands up. You have to come out of there on your knees. Now, he didn't understand the word I was saying, I'm sure, but he got the gist of it, and he did. He come on out, and we got him up. And, of course, I got everybody to secure what was in front of us, and the captain came up and took over from there.
Was that Blackwell?
That was Blackwood.
Oh, Blackwood. Yeah, Blackwood.
Yeah.
So I understand also that you actually got some memorabilia from that incident. What did you get?
I got his wallet, and it was surprising because it was a vinyl wallet, and it was pink and black. And on the front of it, it said, good luck. Now, where he got that wallet, I don't know. But I got it now.
And what was in the wallet?
Some monies, a lot of pictures. A lot of pictures of his family looked like, and also had a picture of him playing the violin in a white dinner coat. And it's pretty impressive.
That tells me this was not a farm kid.
No, definitely not.
Probably an educated.
Yeah.
So after that, you never heard hiding her hair what happened?
Captain Blackwood called me up about a week or two later and told me they had taken him back and interrogated him, and he had given the location of a big ammo cache over on the Cambodian border. Well, they were able to find that cache and made a pretty big sweep over there. Got quite a few weapons, ammo, food. And he told me that day, he said, as soon as we get manned up, I'll send you to Vung Tau for 3 days.
Oh.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah,
of course, the key word here is manned up. That never happened.
Never happened.
I never got to see Vung Tau.
Yeah. I would like you to share what your impression was of Sergeant Glover. When did he first come in, and what was your impression as you served with him?
Glover came in after the lieutenant that we got rid of. And he was the saving grace of that platoon. I've never met a man that was more dedicated to his people than anybody in my life. He didn't step in and say, okay, I'm your platoon leader, you're going to do what I say. He came in and he asked questions. He watched us. He made decisions when they had to be made. But I don't ever remember him making one. Well, I do too remember making. He made one decision I thought was completely wrong, but that's a different story. But other than that, he's the best thing that ever happened to us. I don't think half of us would have survived if it hadn't been for him. He was just a natural born leader.
Yeah, and he was brave.
Very brave.
I mean, when you just think about it, because he was my platoon sergeant too. So, well, he was actually the platoon leader. We didn't have
well, that's what he was with us.
We didn't have a lieutenant. So
that's the first E6 platoon leader I'd ever seen.
Yep. And so, what was your impression of Freddie Hanna?
Freddie Hanna was a good boy. He was just like the rest of us in the platoon.
Now, he was an E6.
He was E6 after I left.
Oh, okay. So he was an E5.
He was an E5 when I was there.
Okay.
Willie, he and I had a platoon, and when Glover came, and because we didn't have anybody. There
Yep.
was nobody in the platoon to speak of. So, but Freddie was a good boy. You couldn't ask for a better person to trust in to watch your back.
Was he brave?
Oh yes, to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was. You just couldn't ask for any better man to be with. He was.
So did him and Glover kind of run the platoon together then, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I know Dick was very close to him.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Yep,
was.
I know he was very close.
Yeah,
So,
he was.
give us your impression of Willie Williams.
Willie was a kid. Willie was immature at the time.
Do you know how old he was?
17. Yeah. Yeah, he was just a kid, but he had a warrior heart. He was full blood Apache,
Mm-hmm.
and he loved the guys that he was with. And like I said, he was a little immature. Took him a little while to catch on.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved him to death. I couldn't say that about many guys
Oh,
in
no,
our platoon.
I know.
But Willie, I really did.
Mm-hmm. And what,
we got very close there.
so Willie, did he change positions from that? He was the assistant gunner. Did he start walking point at some point, or?
The day that Alan Kahn was killed, our machine gunner, I don't know for sure about Willie, but for myself, I told our lieutenant at the time that I was not going to hump the machine gun. I'd already seen 3 machine gunners down
Yeah.
during that time. And I said, I'm going to take point, period.
Hmm.
That's my job. I'm going to do it. So from that day on, I walked point. Willie told him, if he's walking point, I'm going to be behind him. So Willie got behind me, and we walked point off. We switched out.
Yeah.
But that's what we did. That was our job from then on.
Did you ever walk into an ambush?
Oh, more than once.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what's the circumstance for a point guy? You're going slow.
You're going slow.
You're looking for booby traps, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
You're looking out here, out in the distance.
Right.
You're doing it all
Yeah.
at once.
It's kind of funny now, but I heard it coined one time that you were in the zone. You were in the zone. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one reason why I'm here today.
And you probably heard stories about how they would shoot the legs out from underneath the point guy.
Oh yeah,
And then,
Or-
so the medic would, yeah.
yeah, or anybody they would. But to be real honest with you, on my way over in that plane from into Vietnam, I'd already made my mind up I wasn't coming home. So I don't know, that was just me. So I figured, well, I might as well get it over with. Maybe I'll save somebody else's life.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I did. I decided to walk point.
As you were walking point, did they let you go and then you were stuck with them in the center and your guys behind you? Did they let the point through, or did they always pop on the point?
No, I never got on the other side of them.
Okay, so you always got popped.
If I was going to get popped, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. Because I know sometimes they'd let the point guy
And go, yeah.
go through.
Right.
And then as soon as the other guys came up, they'd pop on them,
Yeah.
and then here's my point guy out here.
I think luckily, and again, I don't know why, but if there was something there, I could feel it. And I don't ever remember getting so close that I could see something. Now, I spotted a few bunkers and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
but
And I gotta tell you, they could hide. I mean, those spider holes, you would never have an idea that there was anybody in that hedgerow, ever.
As far as I know, I've never never saw a spider hole.
Mm-hmm.
But we were all over that Michelin rubber tree plantation, and I know they were there.
Yeah, and they'd shoot and go and cover up. I
Yeah.
mean, you'd
Yeah,
never,
you
you'd
never
never
know
see,
it.
you'd
Yeah.
never see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Willie and you walked point,
Yep.
and then is pretty much until, is that what you did pretty much the rest of the?
Pretty much what we did the rest of the time.
Okay. Tell us what it was like to go out. Did you ever just leave Crockett and go on a patrol, just a walk, just a rift? Or did you always go by helicopter someplace?
You know what? When you say Crockett, it's funny that when we were at Train Bang, I got wounded. And I got too close to a hand grenade, is what happened. And my memory after that, I don't remember much after that.
Oh, wow.
It was strange. I did not remember being at Crockett. Willie was talking to me one day, and he said, you know, we were up at Crockett, and we did this and that.
Yeah.
I said, Willie, I was never at Crockett. He said, yes, you were.
Well, the day that I walked into the platoon, Willie was there.
Really?
Yeah, and you had just, I mean, like a day or two before had gone back to Coochie.
See,
I
and
mean, that's how close you and I crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, within 2 days.
I don't remember that. I
Yep.
don't remember Crockett. He sent me a picture of us at Crockett, and I was holding a little pop gun. I have no remembrance of that at all.
Yep. And, that we were there for quite a while, actually, after, you know. And then when I got there, I remember the first thing that, you know, how the rumor mill, the guys
Yeah.
are always talking.
Yeah.
Willie was an icon.
Oh, yeah.
Willie, I mean, and who is this Willie? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
the new guys are going, who is this guy? Well, at that point, Willie was staying pretty close to a bunker and pretty close to a lot of beer.
Yeah.
So I wanted to meet him. I wanted to see him. And so it was almost like trying to get to see a guru or something. You know, I mean, these guys said, this guy is it, you know, the real deal. And I'll never forget when I met him, my first impression was, that's well, no, that's the icon. And then they told us, well, he got wounded this way, and then they dropped napalm, and he got a piece of the napalm canister, and that was another one, and then he got shot by friendly fire. Is that right? I mean, I'm just...
You went... Poor Willie. Poor Willie. First purple, he got 3 Purple Hearts that I know.
Right.
The first one he got was when the wood hit him in the top of the foot.
Yep.
Okay. The second one he got, he and I were walking point. I went down because I heard something. Willie went down because I went down.
Yeah.
He figured there was something up there, so he threw a hand grenade, hit a tree, bounced back.
No.
Willie got shrapnel from that.
Did you?
No,
Oh,
I missed out on that one. And that's how he got his second Purple Heart.
Okay.
Now his third Purple Heart, I don't know what he got. I don't know how he got that one.
Well, I mean, I think Willie told me that a piece of napalm canister hit him in the leg. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's possible.
But you know how stories go.
Well, the thing is, I could tell stories all day on Willie. We got ready to move one time from a hard spot, and we were walking down the road. Well, we were getting ready to leave the hard spot. It was battalion size perimeter, and they were gathering up all this junk, putting it in a net to get picked up. Well, Willie ran across a gas mask case.
Okay.
Well, inside that case was a tube of anthropine.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He read it. It said, pull cap, strike against hip. That's
He
what
did-
Willie... Oh,
he
yeah.
didn't.
Yes, he did. Like this. Now, we had to hump probably 2 or 3 clicks at least to another spot. I had to keep an eye, not only walking point, but I had to keep an eye on Willie. I didn't think he was going to make it.
I'll tell you what. That's a histamine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an antihistamine. So I mean, I bet he was goofy.
Oh, he was. And the bad part about it, later on that evening, we walked into an ambush. So it scared me to death.
My, oh my.
Yeah.
I actually had one of those, and because they were telling us that China was going to do nerve gas on us
Yeah.
when we were up on the Cambodian border.
Yeah.
And of course, we believed them.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that was bad, we believed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so they passed out these atropine syrettes, and I carried it, and I brought it home. I still have it
Do you?
to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rumors about China dropping an A-bomb on us, and I mean, it was all out there. You know, it was all out there. And so what else about Willie? What's
That-
another?
That when you said he got shrapnel in his hip, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, maybe that was the grenade. Or, no, that was
the atropine.
But he didn't get a Purple Heart for that.
No, he didn't get a Purple Heart for that.
So did he, the frag that he got off of his own frag,
Yeah.
did he get treated for that, or was that bad enough to?
It really wasn't bad enough to
Okay.
do much damage, and but he did actually get a Purple Heart for it. And I remember when Blackwood gave him his Purple Heart, he leaned over and he said, "Willie, don't do that again." And Willie said, "Yes, sir."
Wow. Now, I don't know if you were there the night that and this was just about the end of Willie's tour. I mean,
Yeah.
and Glover, our company was going to do a blocking force for the 101st, and Glover and Willie and Naso were at the very end, and then he stretched us out along the berms, and we were stretched out pretty far, and the 101st went in there at night. Why, I will never understand. And they were waiting for him. And they pretty well decimated that group of 101st. Well, when the Cobras show up, the NVA knows it's our time to exit. And they ran right over the top of Glover and Naso and Willie, right by them. I mean, they came out in force. Did you ever hear?
I heard the story.
Oh,
Yeah.
but you weren't there.
No, I wasn't
and
there.
this was really towards Willie's. I mean, this was towards the end.
Yeah.
And Willie got shot in the helmet, and of course Glover was right there, and Willie just gets pushed back against the berm and was out cold, and he yelled at Naso, "Willie's dead." He said Willie got a headshot, he's dead. And so Naso panics. You know, I mean, Willie's dead, and they're right there. I can see them running by. Cobras are shooting at their end. I mean, it's lucky those guys didn't get hit by Cobra fire.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the minute that happened, all of us along the berm start taking fire from the village. And so we're in water, we're in the rice paddies, and most of us to get behind the berm, we were about like this in the water. And of course, at the time, we didn't know what was happening down at Glover's end. We just knew what was happening to us. But Glover tells the story that as the fight went on, he said to Naso again, he says, "I can't believe it, Willie's dead." And about that time, Willie was coming to, and he goes, "I ain't dead yet."
Willie.
I ain't dead yet. But it did. It didn't touch him. But the helmet, you know, the impact, man, it threw him back and conked him.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, and I thought, what a way to end Vietnam. I mean, what a way to go out. You know, and I'm sure he probably thought that too, all a year.
Yeah.
And then to get it like that.
Yeah.
You know. So were you at the gunfight where Herb Nye, that whole deal, where Rabbi got wounded and Herb Nye was out there, and I think it was Morrison and Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. And that was June the 13th, 1968.
That was a hell of a gunfight, wasn't it?
I tell you what, John, I love you, buddy, but I would rather not go there.
Okay, that's okay. So when I say it was a hell of a gunfight,
It was a hell of a gunfight.
it was a hell of a gunfight. Yep.
To mark it off, that next morning was the only time I ever saw Dick Glover cry. It was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a rough night.
Oh, that was terrible. And I think Blackwood was the captain then, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And somehow or another in that story, Glover gets a hold of a flamethrower.
I don't know.
Did you know about that?
Yeah, I knew about it, but
Yeah, and I thought, I never even saw a flamethrower.
yeah.
So I don't know where, in your time, I don't know where.
We were in the battalion-sized perimeter at that time, so there's no telling what we had access to.
Somebody just
Yeah.
grabbed a hold of it or whatever. Well, Glover knew how to use it apparently. So, And that, you know, there's always something that saves the day. You know, I guess that was a turning point. The day in Vietnam that you can remember that you really were the scariest, and you said, "This is it. I know that I'm done." Maybe more than once, but one that you really, I mean, said
I
to
really
yourself.
did. I really thought it was the end. I don't know, John. There's been a lot of them. I think June the 13th probably was a bit
Yeah.
about the bad.
And you just, and it's really weird because I was in that situation, and in my case, I accepted it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought this is it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no
Oh,
way.
yeah.
In other words, there was no way we were getting out of it.
Yeah.
And so I just almost accepted it, and then I just went back to work.
Right. That's all you could do.
I mean, you know.
It is what it is.
And,
It's your time. It's your time.
Yep. How many guys, when you were there, stepped on booby traps? Were they a problem? I mean, were there a lot of people stepping on?
Not a lot of people, no.
Okay.
Now, I do remember one guy walking off in a punji pit one time, but he locked his knees, and it was an old pit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There were only two stakes left, but one of them was right between his legs. But he was about that far from the tip of it. So, but that's the only one I really remember.
Okay. No Chi-Com grenades and on
I don't
wires
remember
and-
ever finding any.
Okay. And what awards did you receive from serving in Nam?
Of course, I got the Vietnam Service Medal, Air Medal, Bronze Star, CIB. That's
Purple Heart?
Well, I've never received my Purple Heart. I did get wounded, but I haven't received it. Never got it.
I forget stuff, so you're going to have to correct me. Is that when the medic from New York was?
Schultz, no, Schwartz. Schwartz was
Is
his
that
name.
during that deal?
Yeah.
And you know that I found him, right? I found him.
I actually talked to him a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so I found him, and one of the first things I asked him was, do you remember that day? And of course he said, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, Cal John, because you had told me.
Yeah.
And so I had it all on my,
Really?
in your file and everything. I said, you know, you never put in for a Purple Heart. And he goes, I don't remember anything. You know, basically he just
Yeah.
said, I don't remember anything. And what I heard from the guys that were there that have a good memory is basically he put his stretcher down in a ditch and crawled on top of it, and that's where he stayed pretty much the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't go. He wouldn't, when somebody yelled medic, he would not.
Yeah.
He wouldn't go, and that's what happened to you.
Yeah.
So
Now, he did clean him up after we got back.
right.
Yeah.
So what? You tried to put in paperwork, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, tried to. I
And-
guess it. No, you know, at the time, I don't know. I really don't remember much of that. But I assumed that the paperwork, when Dick said he turned it in, I don't know.
Did you ever ask Tommy to maybe look into it?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, because you know he knows of places where you can
Yeah.
go.
Now,
Maybe
now, I actually filed for it, but they said there wasn't enough medical evidence, even though I sent them the records. And really, it wasn't, probably because it was, you know, a while after I got wounded, they got infected. And I went in for that.
Yeah.
Not actually the wounds, but the
Yep.
infection. And when I finally got my medical records a few years ago, I noticed that what they put on there they were sores.
Oh,
And technically, I guess that's what they were. I don't know.
yeah. Instead of saying frag wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, and those were your awards. And what was the top rank that you earned?
E5.
E5. Okay. And when did you leave Nam?
I left Nam let's see, the 29th of February, or January, 69.
Okay. So you did the whole.
I did the whole
you did the
period.
whole meal deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you got home, what did you do? You were married.
Yeah, I was
9
married.
weeks or
Right.
9 days or
Yeah,
what?
a month and a half, yeah. Yeah, when I got home, I tried to adjust back to normal life, and it was tough.
Yeah.
But I had a job to go back to.
And what was
So,
that?
I was a silk screener
Okay.
for a glass company in California.
Okay.
So I went right back to that.
So at least you had something stable going on.
Yeah.
What was going on with your marriage?
Well, I found out I was going to be a daddy.
Okay.
Yeah. Had a son.
Okay.
And so everything was great. I'm sure it was tough for her, me trying to transition back, and
Yep.
she didn't understand. Of course, nobody did.
Nobody did.
But I just kept a low profile and went back to work and tried to make things, back to normal and act like nothing ever happened.
Sure. Yeah, and most of us just put it inside and locked it up.
Yeah. As far as I was concerned, that was the only place to put it.
Yep. And what kind of career opportunities did you have throughout your life?
Well, I opened my own sign shop, which kind of integrated what I did there at that company, and did some silk screening. We did some sign painting, and that lasted about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the opportunity to go to work for Michelin Tire Company. Well, actually, it was Uniroyal Tire Company.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember.
When I hired in, so I went to work for them.
Did you tell them on your application that you had personal experience in the field with their company
No,
farm?
I did not. No.
With their-
They didn't. They didn't take over till later. But when Michelin bought us out, I thought that was kind of ironic.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing I thought of. Yeah, on your application, I have personal field experience in your rubber plantations. Wow. And so that was a career.
That was a career.
And how many years did you?
31 and a half years.
31 and a half. And what position? What were you doing?
Well, at the last 15 years of it, I was a specifications engineer for the plant.
Okay. Is a specification making sure the tires come out correctly, or?
No, what I did was the initial build on it. We made our own rubber, and I had to make sure that that rubber going into those tires was what it was supposed to
The
be.
right recipe.
Right.
Okay.
And so it was my job to make sure that testing got done.
Would that be like a
and analyze-
chemistry, almost a chemical, making sure the right stuff
Not
was
really.
in there?
We had somebody else actually doing the recipes.
Okay.
But it's like me making grandma's pumpkin pie. I had the recipe there, and I had to make sure everything was in there was right.
Okay.
And then I had to make sure once the testing was done that they met the specifications that I'd set.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing when I think about all the tires that have rolled on the highways, how few defects. When you think about it, I mean, actual defectively made
Right.
tires. Firestone had some problems.
Yeah.
Remember when
Yeah.
they came
I
out with that
remember that,
one
yeah.
radial tire? But other than that, did you guys ever have any problems?
We didn't. When it was a Uniroyal brand tires, GM had a problem with them, with the front end. Had problems with the tires, what they said when they first started out. But come to find out what happened, they had a problem with their alignment.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't the tire.
Did you guys do truck tires as well?
No, we just
So
did
you're a
passenger tires,
okay.
passengers and pickups, things like that.
So what did you do after retiring?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You found me not long before I retired, and we try to make sure that we could make all the reunions every year, and we travel a little bit, and I work in my shop, and Sheila puts up with me. And
That's another question I had for you. When did you meet Sheila?
I met Sheila in, 1995, or no, 94, late.
So you and the
September.
first wife got divorced?
Yeah.
And
we
you had
got
one son?
And Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you met Sheila?
And then I met Sheila.
And what was that like?
That was wonderful.
Did she save you?
She saved me.
Yeah. I know, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. I don't think they'll ever know what they did for us.
You know, I try to tell my wife,
Yeah.
and I just tell her, you saved me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about
I
it.
agree.
And boy, we're lucky, aren't we?
Boy, I'm
that-
telling you.
Now, in your case, it was two marriages, right?
Yeah.
In my case, the third time was the charm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I really think if Laura hadn't have come into my life, I probably wouldn't have went in a
My wife is the only reason I talked to you the night you called.
Unbelievable.
She turned around and looked at me, and I'll never forget the look on her face. She said, she held out the phone. She said, "You're going to talk to this man." With that look on her face, I thought, I better talk to this man.
Do you remember? Do you remember when we talked?
Yeah, I do.
What was your initial?
I was
thought?
shocked. I really was.
Yep.
I was really shocked.
Because most of us kind of lost track.
Oh,
I mean,
I did.
yeah, most of us did.
Yeah, and then I heard that they, they thought Dick had been killed, and that crushed me. But,
Oh, I mean, for many, many years,
Yeah.
it was assumed. And the reason is Paul Naso, when he was wounded, when he went through the VA and got back to the States, he had told Rick Galley and Fry that Dick was killed at Diamond 2. He got his head blown up.
Yeah,
And from that moment on, he was dead.
yeah,
So then when I start looking for the guys, the first thing I would do is I'd go to the wall.
yeah,
And I wanted to see, I'd go to the date and find their name. Dick wasn't on the wall.
yeah,
And then when I called Naso and Galley, I said, "Guys, Dick's alive." And both of them just went ape. I mean,
Yeah.
they were doing somersaults. And "Have you found him? Have you found him?" And I said, "No, I just found out he was alive."
yeah,
Naso would call me almost every week.
yeah,
"Have you found him? I mean, he became he was obsessed
yeah,
with finding Dick. And Galley wasn't quite as obsessed, but he was
Yeah.
really tickled that Dick hadn't died. And of course, it's a great story the way I found him. First of all, I had access to finding out every Richard Glover in the United States. There were like 686 of them. And the only way I could look for them is I'd have to start calling phone numbers.
yeah,
I actually made thousands of phone calls during that time. And sometimes I got tired.
yeah,
I mean, I got weary of it. And I called, it was shortly after I found Joe Wascom. And I called him up and I said, "For God's sake," I said, "can you help me?" I said, "I'm sitting here doing this all by myself and I'm beat."
yeah,
And he goes, "Sure, who do you want me to look for?" And I said, "Dick Glover." And he goes, "Dick Glover? He's alive?" And I go, "Yep." And I've got 680 some odd names that need to be called. And he goes, "Send them to me." And I did. And he started calling, and of course, never, he'd go down in the middle of the list. He didn't start at the top.
Right, yeah.
And he'd go in, and he did about 10, and he called me, and he goes, "Man, this is kind of hard work, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "My kid is pretty darn good." It was when computers were coming out and stuff, and he said, "I'm going to call my kid and see if he has a way of figuring out who's who." And so I said, "Good luck." I said, he doesn't even know who we are. I mean, his kid
yeah,
wasn't with Joe. So, and so I said, okay. So he called his kid, sent him the folder with all the names, and called me and said, "Well, my kid's going to work on it, when he gets time." And about 10 minutes later, Joe called me up and he said, "We found Glover." And of course, I thought he's jerking me,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, right." And he goes, "No. He said, my kid found Glover." "How did he do it?" "He called the first name on your list." I swear.
really.
And Marianne answered the phone.
Oh my,
And so then I go, "Now what do we do?" I mean, I was pretty excited. And so then I go, "Okay, give me the address and the phone number," and it was correct. The listing was correct, because that's in the old days. We got them out of phone books,
yeah,
and so I got these. I paid money to a company to give me all the information, and so I was nervous. And Joe said, I'm not gonna call him. You call him, because I wouldn't want to. I want you to. This is your project and everything." And I said, "Okay," and I waited till that evening. I mean, it was like I just didn't know what I was going to say, because everybody thought he was dead.
yeah,
And so I called, and Marianne answered the phone, And I said, is Sergeant Glover there? I never called him anything. I never called him anything else. And she goes, yes, who's calling? And I said, well, my name's John Quintrell, and I served with Dick in Vietnam. And she turned around and said, Dick! She was yelling at him. There's some guy on the phone. I think it might be the guy that called earlier in the day, finding out if you were a Vietnam veteran, because that's all the kid knew to ask.
Yeah.
You know, is this Dick Glover the Vietnam vet? She said yes, and so, you know, was he there in 68? Yes. 69? Yes. So I mean, we narrowed it down.
Yeah.
So he came to the phone, and he got on the phone, and I said, "This is Big John," and of course he hadn't thought about. He was like you and I.
Yeah.
Pretty much squashed that stuff away. And I said, you know, there's a couple of guys that are just real anxious to talk to you. And he said, who? And I said, Nason Galley. And when I said that, he started to cry. Mm. It was like a floodgate.
Yeah.
You know, because he knew that somebody he served with had found him.
Yeah.
And it overwhelmed him.
Yeah.
And I come to find out he had never told his two sons or his wife anything about his service.
Yeah.
He had his awards up on the wall. Nobody ever asked about them. He never said anything about them, but he could see them every time he went up the stairs. And so we got to talking, and I just, you know, I was so excited, and I said, well, God, do you remember the night we did this? And you know, and he has a great memory.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
yeah,
he has a real good memory. And I said, is it okay if I call you back tomorrow? And I said, I know Nason Galley are just sitting, eating themselves alive, and when I tell them I found you, they're going to pop a cork. And he goes, well, let me tell you something. He said, for all these years when I was on the road, I would stop in every town and go through the phone book and look for Naso and Galley, because their names aren't common.
Right.
So if they were anywhere, you know, I'd get them. He was looking for them every time he'd go to a different town.
That's amazing.
Yeah, of course, never found them.
Yeah.
Who, you know, so, and he even went to New York on business and stuff and would look through the directories and stuff. So I hung up and I called Nace and I said, you want to talk to Glover? And he said, what? And I said, do you want to talk to Sergeant Glover? And he goes, did you find him? And I said, yeah. And I said, he's waiting for your phone call. And I gave him Dick's number, and then I called Galley. And I said, you want to talk to Sergeant Glover? And he thought I was kidding.
Yeah.
He just said, you're jerking me. Yeah. And I said, no, you want his phone number? You want to call him? Yep. And so both of those guys called him that evening.
Yeah.
And it was a hell of a reunion.
Yeah.
You know, and then I called him the next night when I was a little bit more, had it together, because it was so emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
oh, yeah.
like you said, he's the only reason I survived Vietnam.
Yeah.
If Dick Glover, if it wasn't for him taking us new guys under his wing and teaching us how to do this,
yeah,
I don't think I would have made it.
Yeah.
Because we relied on him and his judgment and his instructions so much. I mean, we were like a bunch of new school kids, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
hanging on to his leg.
Yeah.
And but he never minded. He always took time.
Yeah.
You know, and so they called me back the next day, and they just, both of them were just almost silent. Nace goes, I can't believe you found him. He goes, you have made my life.
Yeah.
And Galley said the same thing.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting deal about how I found him.
Yeah.
But everybody thought he was killed.
Yeah, I did. At least that's the word I got. I
Yep.
know you called me and told me you'd found him. And when I called him, I couldn't hardly talk.
Oh, well, that was what my problem was. Is I started crying.
Yeah.
And then when he started crying, I mean, you can't talk.
No.
And it's kind of silly when you think of two grown men that are intelligent enough to carry on a conversation, but that's just the way it was. And you know, that happened to me many, many times. And I haven't told anybody this, but you know, I was in my wife's office when I was working, and she was behind me at her desk, and I was at the computer here. And you know, every time I'd find a guy, I'd put it on speakerphone, because I was writing down everything that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And every time, without fail, a subject would come up that was horrible. a horrible thing that happened.
Yeah.
And I would cry, and my poor wife, I didn't realize it. She's sitting behind me hearing all this
Yeah.
stuff. I'd never said a word about my Vietnam service to her.
Yeah.
She knew I was a veteran, but nothing. And you know, I'd turn around, tears were just, and I thought, wow, this isn't fair. Yeah, I mean, this isn't fair to her.
Right. Yeah.
But, and so I told her, I said, maybe it's not a good idea. And she goes, I want to know everything about you that I can.
Yeah.
She goes, so please don't make me leave.
Yeah.
And you know how much she loves the Wolfhounds?
Oh yeah. Yes, I do.
So, in closing, I'd like you to tell us, or the people that may be looking at this in 50 years, I want you to tell us, what does the American flag mean to you?
It stands as a symbol of this country, and I still believe in the country. I still believe in the flag, and it's a great symbol. And if it's up, I'll stand for it, and I will give my allegiance to it. And again, it's just a symbol, but it's a symbol of a great country.
Yeah. You know, an interesting thought, and Tommy Clack brought this up, when we raised our hand and took the oath, we never got out of the oath.
Oh no, no.
I mean,
the oath. No end to it.
There was no end
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, and if I were to ask you to define what a hero is, what is a hero?
It's a hard definition, I think. Being a hero, you have to be a hero in someone else's eyes. I don't think you'll ever be a hero in your own eyes.
I think you're right.
No matter what you do. I'm sure that if someone saved my life again, they would be a hero to me. But again, I think it's as a person myself, I'll never be a hero. But I have been told by a couple of my grandkids that I am their hero. So, you know,
Does it get any better than that?
it does not. It does
Wow,
not.
that's awesome. Well, to end this, I want you to look into the camera, and I want you to finish this interview by saying anything you want, any of your thoughts that somebody, maybe one of your grandkids are going to see when they get married, their wives, their children, great-grandkids. Just give them a few thoughts of what you think.
I don't know if it's to my great-grandkids. I'm sorry I'm not around. To my grandkids, I love you with all my heart. And I've tried to be a good grandpa. And I'm sure I fell short more than once, but I love you all, and I just don't know what I'd do without my grandkids right now. Just stay strong. It may get a little tough for you at times, but you just persevere, push through it, and I think you can make it.
Good. Well, Cal, thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you, John.
You know how many guys say, thank you for your service? I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say something different to you tonight.
All right.
Never forget your service.
Right.
Never forget what we did and how we made it. Never forget.
Thanks, John.